Well, g'day Northlight. It is great to be with you and sharing in this study in this way. You've just been reading through the Macedonian giving example, and by golly, what a challenge they are to you and to me. And as I read those passages, I think, is my giving done in the same way? And so I hope you reflect in that similar light. They are a challenge to us because they give generously from very little. And we have so much, so we can also be generous, and this is the point. Not simply to church, of course, because there are obligations there, but to the poor and to the wider gospel needs. If you and I are not propelled to be generous in the same way the Macedonians were propelled to be generous, then we're not experiencing the gospel of Jesus Christ in the same way, and I guess we're missing out. And so there needs to be that kind of analysis of our own heart, as Nat has already pointed out, to see if the gospel is operating in the same way within. In that passage we just read in 1 Corinthians, giving is considered a grace. Grace starts with God. He is the one who's given himself, his own son, and all that he has to us, he is the one who begins with grace. And our giving, material and financial giving, is also considered a grace in response. And it is the giving of God that motivates the giving of finances in return. It then becomes, as verse 4 says, a privilege. Now there's an idea. Giving is a privilege. That's how the Macedonians thought about it. In other words, they think they would be the unfortunate ones if they were not able to contribute. Now there's a wild thought, and I don't know if it's ever come across your mind that is one of the reasons why we do give. How little of our own motivations come from that very sense of privilege. Finally, Paul talks about excelling in the grace of giving, and I find that also a challenging idea, a very challenging concept, because we tend to reserve the idea of excelling to be in our field of expertise, or our work, for example, to be excellent there, or in our sport, to excel in sport. But to excel in the grace of giving, well, there's a very wild concept that I think we don't really bring into that space. And I think that challenges the giving that we do, which is from our leftovers, what have I got? Here's the offertory bag. And it's not like that in Christian thinking, because God has been generous to us. Because God has gifted us with so much, we excel in the grace of giving like we would excel in our own work or sporting endeavours. That then challenges the giving as from my leftovers, from what I have left, from what I have on me, to something that we might think about and something we might plan and, if you like, identify as something we can be generous in. And I think all of this is how we are challenged in this particular passage. There are other motivators in the Gospels or in the Bible for generous giving. The book of Philippians is another good one to go to. You might like to think about that. Particularly the idea of partnering with the Apostle Paul, the Philippian church partner with him, which did include financial gifts. And so you can partner with the work of the gospel here in West Pymble, West Lindfield, through your gifts. You're working and partnering with God himself. What an extraordinary idea. And I just leave you with one final biblical motivation for giving, and it comes from the most famous verse in the whole Bible, John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave. Our God is a giving God, and we as his disciples must be in that same image. We must be giving people. It applies, of course, to our time. It applies, of course, to ourselves. It applies to the way we relate to others, but in the Bible, it also applies to our finances and the way we support our church and Christian ministry. Well, here's a number of gospel motivations to generous giving. It's a grace, because we've been shown grace. It's a privilege, and God himself is a giving God. Would you partner in your own heart and in your own giving with Northlight as we seek to bring this beautiful gospel to people? As you go back to your groups, you might like to take a few minutes just to think through this and where is the greatest challenge from this scripture to your heart. And maybe you can be vulnerable with your peers on that one. Thanks.